Hello, everyone, and welcome to WriterSpeak, dedicated to the written word and those who produce it. I am your host, Jeane Slone. I am the author of 3 historical fictions, She Flew Bombers, She Built Ships, and She Was an American Spy During World War II. Today in the studio, I would like to introduce Francis Rico. Welcome to WriterSpeak, Francis.
Thank you, Jeannie. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, your book is very eye-catching. I am always very interested in covers of books, but here we have hands reaching up high. They almost appear to be trees to me. And then we have the deep blue sea at sunset. Very nice. And the title, A Shaman's Guide to Deep Beauty. So I think you have a lot going on here with meaning. And then the back, there you are. There's your face.
It is designed to have people want to pick it up. It's like, what's this? And then you go, oh, there's the person. What's the deal with that?
It's well designed.
Yeah.
I like the hands reaching up.
Yeah, this is beautiful work done locally by Ted and Peggy Race here in Sonoma County.
Oh, well, that is good to know.
They're graphic artists from the LA area, and they were like in the high speed, fast lane of graphic art, and they came here to enjoy life, and they do beautiful work. They also did the other cover here to this this book that is also a movie. It has a DVD attached. This was just released by Hay House in November, called Dreaming Heaven, and it's about journey into Teotihuacan. So A Shaman's Guide to Deep Beauty is a collection of shamanic practices tied together in a story. And the other, Dreaming Heaven, is about a very specific place, Teotihuacan, Mexico, where there's pyramids, and it's a very ancient mystery school, an energetic school, place that was a real university for the Americas before Western people came and arrived here. It was part of a university system that taught fabric making, it taught dyeing, it taught ceramics, it taught all kinds of things, along with what we now call spirit or spiritual practices.
And so here we have 2 books, and I would really like our audience to know who you are. Francis Rico combines ancient and modern shamanic wisdom and has studied with many masters and leaders in the American Southwest and South America. Francis brings Toltec traditions, shamanic wisdom, humor, and music to everything he participates in. So tell us, how did you become a shaman?
These things sometimes run in families. There's an emergence now of people interested in shamanism because they're being called. They feel a call from something that isn't religion, isn't spirituality, but it's a deep call to respond to the reality of the situation that we have on our planet now, the distress, of our ecosystems. So there's a natural response to it. For me, my grandfather was a shaman. My grandparents and my mother and her sisters were in a Japanese prison of war camp in the Philippines. And he was a shaman. But I think the important thing about shamanism is that it's not a religion. It's not a religious belief. It's a group of practices that have to do with the unseen worlds. And in his era, that meant going into chicken coops where the chickens were distressed and doing some kind of mojo, doing something with the energy fields that were there. And suddenly the chickens would be happy and start laying again. He would do home blessings and home clearings, and he would work with clients. And when I was born, my mother had me when she was extremely young. When they came from Manila back to the United States, they landed on Catalina Island in a vacation home, a little tiny place, with a big family there. And my mother she was a child having a child. She had me when she was 17. And so I was raised by my grandparents for 6 or 7 years. And I became my grandfather's assistant. And he was blinded when he was in the prison camp in Manila. And so I became his eyes. And he would ask me to look and describe the energy, to describe what was going on in a situation that he had been called to perform it. And I would describe it to him. I would say, Grandpa, I was speaking Spanish, of course, Grandpa, the energy it looks murky, it looks rusty, it looks gooey. Then he would do something. He called it, well, he had some different names for it, but he would do some movements and he would connect with the energy and it would shift and it would start to glow like a rosy pink. And when I described that to him and he agreed that it was done, the job was done. Oh. So I got early training in being what we call in shamanic terms a seer, someone who sees below the surface of normal appearances to the realities that are there. The realities, not just the reality, but the many realities that are possible. Being psychic, reading minds, seeing into human bodies, seeing into places that are inflamed, and wanting to be helpful and being whimsical and goofy. As a kid, I was always getting in trouble. I was a natural giggler. So my grandmother was very religious and we'd be in church and I'd start looking around. And
when you see clothing?
I called it X-ray vision because I see through clothing. I only do it when I'm invited, of course, now, but I didn't know any of that then. And there were no mentors or no teachers because my mother had gotten married to her dream, an American soldier. And we started living on military bases. So I went from being a shaman in training with my grandfather, who was a musician and a philosopher and a humorist, a very dramatic person. I got his guitar, and that guitar went with me, and I didn't fit into the Army very well, but I could hit a string on the guitar, and in the vibration of that string, I could leave the uncomfortableness of being in the Army, being in the military, and come back into vibrational. So this was a vibrational form of training. I became a musician and performed as a musician and ended up having a music store here in Sonoma County called Zone Music. And this was a foundation that allowed me to, being a musician is not like a 9-to-5 job working for a corporation. And I was able to take a lot of blocks of time off to travel the world. And I would go visit with all the elders, and in some cases, in the Royal Andes, visiting with the Kalawayas, which are the people that I really learned a lot of very practical things that I'd like to be able to share. I had to visit them 10 years in a row before they felt that I was reliable and could be trusted to communicate with them. So I would go on journeys with Don Miguel Ruiz and a number of people like that and support them technically. And meanwhile, I would be able to take time off and visit with the elders along the way. So I've traveled the Americas and I've traveled the world to sacred sites. And all along, Jeannie, what I was looking for was a way to reestablish my connection with my grandfather. And something about, I didn't know that, of course. I thought I was pursuing the shamanic path and learning these deep wisdom traditions, which I did learn along the way. But the reason why the elders, people like Joseph Rael, beautiful painted arrow, here in the American Southwest, who is the Dalai Lama of the Central Indian tribes. And I work with him and have helped him with doing videos and getting his message out to the world because he's a holy person, you know, on our planet. The reason why these people connected with me and saw the genuine interest that I had was because I wasn't pursuing power, I wasn't pursuing dark shamanism, any of the traditions like the Carlos Castaneda, if people are familiar with his work. I was pursuing the loving connection I had with my grandfather and the work that I had with him. They could feel that. They could even see that perhaps I didn't know that, but I was genuinely being present and listening, being respectful, really learning, really interested in a different way of looking at the human form, which I saw differently already, but to see the energetic form, to see what's called the rainbow body in ancient traditions, and to see you as a iridescent upwelling of divine energy flowing and radiating and moving like a, I can't describe it, an upwelling waterfall. For me, it's a real treat to have this gift, and I'm very grateful. And one of the things I do in the work that I do is I encourage people to find that giftedness within them, because we all have it. We all have something that is essential to the restoration of well-being on our planet. All of us that are here now bring something really special and unique.
When you have an ability like you describe, I can see that it could be used in a negative way.
A lot of the things that are natural for me, teleportation being one of them, or being in two places at one time, and a lot of these things that are the world of parapsychology, people pursue these phenomena and try to learn how to do them. For me, they just come naturally. They just came naturally. And because of that, I really recognize how that is not a significant pursuit. The real pursuit is to come joyfully present in the moment with the giftedness of who you are, and to begin doing something to help our world become more compassionate, more caring, for us to become more collaborative, more cooperative, better communicators with each other. And so that became the foundation of my book. That there's 11 chapters, each that is part of a spiral path that's ancient. It's not Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. It's an even older form, an older story, and it moves in a spiral, and the spiral is always in the present moment. It's a spiral that flows with energy and movement, but it's stationary, it's still at the same time. So our English language doesn't describe some of these energetic concepts that are really well known around the world. To indigenous people who speak a different language, they speak a language of verbs, and we speak a language of nouns and objects, and they speak a language of things metamorphosizing and everything being a world in motion. It's difficult to translate these concepts from these older wisdom traditions into modern English. But what I did was I translated them into practices, the practices that we actually use in the indigenous wisdom traditions. And then something illuminates from within that's deeper than the level of English. It's at the deepest level of communication, which I experience as deep beauty, the language of creation, communicating to us in beauty.
We would love to hear you read from A Shaman's Guide to Deep Beauty.
I can read something that explains the value of having this wisdom, these wisdom traditions from 3 different cultures, really. The Toltecs, the ancient cultures from Teotihuacan and the mystery school there, the wisdom traditions that come out of the Royal Andes, the Kalawayas particularly, and the wisdom traditions that come from our own American Southwest. We don't usually see the big picture, where magical opportunities are present and easily available to us, because we most often look at reality through the narrow flashlight beam of our attention, instead of seeing from horizon to horizon in the bright sunlight of awareness. Your journey through this spiral will bring you to the center of this awareness, where beauty permeates you, beauty radiates from you, and the deep beauty of every moment is revealed. This is the homeland of shamans and seers, of visionaries and mystics. Here, in these fields of light, are the resources so desperately needed on planet Earth, where brilliant flashes of illumination, lightning bolts of inspiration, visions of divine entering the affairs of humankind. Here in the big picture, magic is not the exception, it's the rule. And in this time of transition, at the beginning of a new world age, what were once tightly closed gates of perception have swung open. Around us, we can clearly see the kingdom of heaven that surrounds us. As a species, we're at a new evolutionary moment. We're entering into the time of the flowering of humanity. The ancient promises made deep in our hearts of life, caring and sharing the gift of life, all of us as a single family, are coming true. It used to be that shamans, seers, and visionaries would bring messages back from this place, back to what we call normal reality, and translating these visions of deep beauty and encouragement into something that frightened people living in a world of scarcity and limitation could understand was a daunting task. But now we're in a transition between an age of ignorance and an age of enlightenment. At this moment, these worlds are overlapping. Love is overtaking fear. Peace on earth here in each of us, as we turn to embrace peace within ourselves, is overtaking war and separation. We're moving into a world of compassionate, loving kindness, and it's upwelling everywhere, especially within our children. Now, the challenge is not how to communicate these messages from another realm of being, but how to navigate through the changing landscapes of one world falling apart as another world emerges. And while there are no maps to chart a course, there are guides, like this one, A Shaman's Guide to Deep Beauty. And while old-style guidebooks told you where to look and what to look at, in this time of global transition, you'll need to know how to look.
Well, thank you for sharing that. It clears up a lot that helps me understand it more and why this is a guide.
It's a guidebook.
Yeah. Can you tell me what is Toltec? What is Toltec traditions?
Toltec is a Nahuatl word, a word from central Mexico that is, we have a whole number of words that we use to describe old civilizations. Aztec, as a word, is a made-up word, made up by a cultural anthropologist to describe the Mixtecs, the Mexican people who founded a civilization that they didn't call Aztec at all, but that we call Aztec, and everyone thinks they know what Aztec dancing is and Aztec design patterns and all of that. They would be clueless as to that word Aztec because it doesn't mean anything, but it's in our modern vocabulary. Used by Carlos Castaneda, Toltec represented a very mysterious, dark tradition of sorcerers and people doing extraordinary things in other dimensions. Used by Don Miguel Ruiz, the word Toltec meant artist of spirit.
Oh.
That is a Nahuatl definition, and Nahuatl is a language that is metaphoric and deep and verb-based. So, like shaman doesn't mean doctor, lawyer, Indian chief, shaman. Shaman is a word that means vibrating so highly with energy that you see in the dark. So it means vibrating and seeing in the dark. And the dark that's being seen in is the trance of what we call normal reality. So to call someone a shaman is kind of a misnomer, just like Toltec is a misnomer for tradition, which I'll get to just in a moment. But to call someone a shaman, we're shamaning. You know, when we vibrate, when we increase our vibrational level, it's a creative art of vibrating at a higher level with a broader bandwidth and deeper, more resonant, more connected. And that's act of shamaning is what that word shaman should really represent. Toltec and the Toltec tradition, the Toltec Mystery School, is the name that we give to this very ancient place that has a very mysterious history called Teotihuacan of pyramids. You know, the Great Pyramid at Teotihuacan has the same exact footprint within 8 inches of the Great Pyramid at Giza in Egypt, and they're aspected exactly the same. It's a marker for a 4-leaf clover cave that has been in continuous use by shaman, curanderas, healers, we would also call them maestros, those that orchestrate the choir of possibilities. So the word shaman in many different cultures wouldn't even be recognized because the people that do the work of shamaning, of increasing their vibration and going for answers in these deep places that seem mysterious but that are the magic that seems so remote is actually a part of our life experience.
Now you invite children and families to the Mystery School.
For the first time, this has been the province going to the Mystery School and going through the process that's available at Teotihuacan of deep energetic transformation and awakening. It's been something that adults have done.
Yeah.
And yet so many of my, I don't even want to call them clients, but some of the young people I work with are coming in totally gifted, wide awake, desiring and wanting to have a positive contribution.
But children are naturally open, more open than adults.
Oh wow, are they? Yeah, and they progressively maybe become shut down and closed down. But it really did seem to me that children should have every opportunity to wake up to the special gifts of who they are. I have a young girl I work with who reads micro expressions. She reads them as clearly as you read a book. She's always reporting on the difference between what someone says and what their micro-expressions are revealing. And she's commenting on it. Well, she's 9 years old also. But for her to be supported and to learn that her gift is a gift of perception that allows her to bring compassion and cooperation and an insight into what someone's experiencing that makes her capacity to be empathetic and helpful huge. What a gift she has.
And using a gift in a positive way.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
So that's what this adventure of bringing children to Teotihuacan and families, I'm calling it a family adventure.
Yeah.
And, but we also bring groups of people. I bring healers, doctors, therapists, body workers, people involved in the healing professions, because these are the people that volunteer to step into something, and usually they burn themselves out, they're injured, sometimes they move into despair about their work. Doctors have the highest suicide rate of any socioeconomic group in our culture, Western culture, followed by dentists. So people that step into the healing professions really find that life is very difficult, can be very difficult for them. And to have a place of rejuvenation, those four-leaf clover caves, the reason why they were used by the shamans 2,000, 3,000 years ago and older, because there was an energy that radiated from them. We call it, in shamanic terms, black light. Black light is a part of the 14 billion year emanation of yes. That was the explosion that has created everything that we continue to be a part of.
So tell us about the 11 simple wisdom practices. I know you probably can't tell us about all of them, but it would be nice to hear about a few of them.
I can give you some examples, because the important thing, Jeannie, is to embody and practice. It's a field that in modern terms is called neurophysiology, neurology. It's the field of using our own capacity, our own neuroplasticity to learn something new and to grow. And as we grow in our capacity, we grow and our opportunities grow with us. And the doors that open grow as we expand our capacities. So this is very practical. This shamanism and what is contained in A Shaman's Guide to Deep Beauty is not spiritualism or woo-woo or philosophy or theory. It's practice learned from wisdom tradition teachers over 40 years of my experience. I backed into doing this book, as a matter of fact. I was in despair about how to communicate this kind of information. And I wrote an outline for a video that I was going to use to communicate it. Then I'd be done with it and I could move on. And someone took the outline that I did, which was a spiral with all these points on it, and showed it to a publisher. And she said, "Oh, I want that book. That should be a book." So then I ended up writing a book. So I didn't start off to write a book. I started off to do a video because I was feeling that trying to communicate this kind of information in written words was going to be difficult. But it happened. It worked. So one of the chapter titles and one of the practices is Enlightenment is Easy. And this runs counter to what everybody believes about enlightenment. They believe that it's an extremely difficult thing that normal people shouldn't really try because it's dangerous. We go to church, let the experts do it, or that you end up being a guru, or you're at the top, you have to wear white or wear black and you're at the top of a pyramid, or you have to live in caves. They believe all this stuff about what it takes to move to what we call an enlightened state. And what the old-timers knew and share, using our own physiology as a way of learning this neurologically, is that we're designed to awaken. As a matter of fact, enlightenment is just the first step. It's not some big goal like it's portrayed in our culture to become enlightened or to become awakened. Enlightenment or awakening would be just the first step at becoming an effective, caring, connected, collaborative, cooperative person working on behalf of life itself. So I'll show you what the old-timers use. They use a hand because our hand comes with us. So you've got a tool that you can use. Now we use cell phones, and it'll probably be a picture of a hand on a cell phone that a kid would use. But underneath there is the hand. So we have a hand. And so a modern neurologist will show you the same symbol. Will show you this hand. And what they'll describe is that this is the metabolic or reptilian brain. In shamanism, we call it the world of the snake. The next outgrowth of this is thumb. This is the inner brain, the limbic brain, the brain of connectedness. There's not language there, but there are patterns stored in it, and it's our emotional center as well. And it's the world of the, pick your big cat, jaguar. It's the jaguar, the puma, the leopard, the lion, the world of tribal affiliation and connectedness between us as mammals. Folded over is the neocortex. So, and that's the world of the eagle. So we have the three worlds in shamanism of the snake, the metabolic brain, the limbic brain, which is the middle world, or the world of our connectedness, and the upper world, which is the world of the eagle, or the condor in Peru.
And you have an excellent picture in the book.
Yeah, that describes that this system, which is also used by neurologists to describe this is where the eyes are, this is where you have a tumor perhaps that we have to work on, and it's part of a language center, so you might lose, this is where the stroke happened. You know, neurologists use this same model that the old shamans do. It's an amazing thing, but it's called the triune brain, and we call it the three worlds. And it's the way that we are organized energetically. So what's the image that all of the avatars, all of the Buddha, Christ, you name the holy person, has sent messages in sign language down through time to us. They hold this message. They show you this. Mm-hmm. What they're showing is that we are designed to open. That the world that we experience as a closed energetic system, and you know you're here if the choices you look at are like looking at politics and trying to decide between bad and worse. If you've got bad and worse choices in your life, your system is closed down. And you are designed to awaken. And in this awakening, as you open, suddenly the field of possibility and the field of resources that weren't available here, I mean, how can you be affectionate, or how can you get the job done with this closed fist? And yet we try as human beings, and yet we're designed to evolve and awaken. Every single one of us is. This isn't something that's reserved for holy people. This is a potential that all of us have. The possibility to awaken and to loosen this system and to open it is there. And nothing has changed. Not one cell has changed. The same perfection is in the closed down system as in the wide open, enlightened state.
Could you tell us about forgiveness?
Yes, because to make that opening, that journey from a closed system to an open system, has to do with looking into the distress in our lives. We keep our systems shut down in a state of chronic contraction. And by recognizing when we're distressed and moving to choice and opening our hand in response, we lay down a very tiny neurological pathway that says, in response to distress, I will open. The thing that has us holding this distress, this chronic position, is injuries that have happened to us. So many of them are unintentional. So many of them are based on the lesson that we got very, very young, that we would have to behave according to someone else's rules to be worthy and accepting of love. What is the biggest injury that's kind of at the heart of people's distress? It's the loss of unconditional love. It's that, and we have to domesticate children, we have to train them, but the way that happens ends up happening from the dysfunctional, unconscious fields of our own distress that parents through generations pass along. So how forgiveness plays into this is that we're holding on to something. We have, like, it's an image of Kali, like a very ancient image of a being with 10,000 hands. And that's the way we look energetically. You have 10,000 hands of potential, and yet we use only a few of them to negotiate and navigate in the world that we're in, the normal world. And these hands are holding on to things, most of them injuries. So from a shamanic point of view, forgiveness is not an ethical or a moral or a religious or a graceful thing to do. It's just extremely practical, that if you want to regain the use of your hand, you return what you're holding in it to the person who gave it to you. In this case, it's an injury. So let's look at that word. It's a word very similar to the word forget. Forget means, and it's an ancient Celtic word that had to do with the forepart of the boats in the water, in the waters off of Scotland, and the boats would all be fishing and a guy would be on the front yelling "for." This word came down in golf too. This word is like you hit the ball and you want people to get out of the way, you yell "for." Mm-hmm. Well, to forget means to push away having. I pushed away because it means push away from I'm coming through. That's the origin of it. The word foreboding is another word that shares this ancestry. We were doing fine, we were experiencing everything just as wonderful, and an eerie sense of weirdness came over us, and we pushed away our sense of abode. It was foreboding. And forsaking. We have a relationship, and I abandon you. I push away the relationship, or you push away the relationship, and you forsake me. Forgive shares that same ancestry, and what it means is to push away and return, in shamanic terms, what was given. So if what was given to you was a misunderstanding or an injury, whether it was unintentional and part of unconscious patterns, or whether it was intentional and somebody was saying mean. As an example, shut up, your singing is driving me crazy, you're giving me a headache, you sound like a crow, stop it immediately and never sing in this house again. That injury, I was singing beautifully as a child, and yet my mom had a headache, and she didn't want to hear me shrieking and la la la, doing all of that. And I, instead of allowing that to come in and break my heart, I intercept it and hold on to it. And then when people say, "Why don't you come and sing with us?" Well, I can't sing. I don't sing. Mm-hmm. I sound like a crow.
That's what you learned from the negativity.
Right. And we hang on to this loss of our potential. What if we lost the greatest singer on the planet because of a mother who said, "Shut up," and stop that immediately? Mm-hmm. So what forgiveness means, I use chili peppers to represent these injuries. And I have a ceremony that I have people do that's outlined in the book. And you use the chili peppers to represent the injuries that you're holding. You call the person present. You return that energy by turning over your hands and returning the energy to them. It may be toxic to us, it might break our heart, but when we return it, it goes back to them. All the programs, like 12-step programs, all have this component of forgiveness as a key foundational thing. Shamanism just takes it to its essence, which says, you regain your capacity to be present in the world as you forgive. That's why it's the key.
I thought that would be one of the most important words to discuss.
As you recover your capacity, you can begin to make progress, making a contribution to life.
So the last question I have to ask you, why do you feel drumming is so important?
Drumming is, and it has been important for shamans and shamanic cultures and world cultures, because drumming creates an outside pattern, rhythmic pattern, that we respond to internally, because the origin, the foundational pattern of drumming is heartbeat and movement.
Yeah. Is it more of a group or alone?
Both, because alone, shamanic drumming at a fairly fast clip, drives the audio nerves and drives this pattern that very, very quickly reveals that the inside and the outside are the same sign. There's no boundaries. So with drumming, the boundaries that separate us break down. And what we find is that our inside and our outside are both joyful, or in movement, or energized. And it's like making a Mobius strip. That's another thing that reveals this truth, that the great mystery of being is that we are it. We are you, Jeannie, and you listening. You're the sun and the moon and the stars, and you're the trees, and you're the wind that blows through the trees, and you're the birds that land on the trees and the branches of that majestic cathedral of light, and you're their song, and you're all of it. You're all of it. And yet you are you, a defined human being. And that's the great mystery. Drumming, when you drum repetitively. So now you would think that drumming puts you into a trance. That's why they drum. They drum so that they go into a trance state. Drumming wakes you up from the trance. Drumming alerts you to the reality that you're connected to everything.
Well, I wish we had more time to discuss all the 11.
There's more practices.
But that's why we all should read your book. You're so thorough at explaining everything. I'm very impressed, and I understand so much more. I think reading this book for our audience would help further. But tell us briefly about your new book, Dreaming Heaven.
Dreaming Heaven is the book that parallels a movie called Dreaming Heaven. You can go to dreamingheaven.net or Dreaming Heaven and see some clips from the movie that's specifically about Teotihuacan and the energy fields and the work that we do there. Mm-hmm. So it's an embodied example of using this emergent wisdom tradition that is re-emerging in our culture, ancient wisdom traditions and use of ancient resources, and becoming acquainted with them and learning to use them in normal, everyday, what we call normal life. If the magical field that's at Teotihuacan is available to us and we learn to access it, we find it everywhere in every moment, which is also the point of deep beauty. One thing I've got to say about reading this book is that it's great if people read it, mm-hmm. and it would be even better if they would practice some of the practices, because they would find something becoming possible within them, some enhanced capacities that seem miraculous, seem magical, but are a natural part of our innate giftedness. It's
good that you added guide. That tells us to practice.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Where can we buy this amazing inspirational book?
Of course, you can buy this on Amazon. Yes, of course. I prefer people to buy locally. I buy locally. I try to support local merchants.
It is in the local shops, listed in the Sonoma County Gazette, saying buy local authors' books here.
What a great idea.
And we will list your website on the credits.
Thank you. People can contact me through that, and
yes.
They can get copies of the book if they want to.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with us all your wisdom.
Thank you.
And joining us on WriterSpeak.
Thank you, Jeannie.
WriterSpeak is produced at the C Media Lab of the North Bay. I would like to thank our sponsors, the Sonoma County Gazette and the Redwood Writers, a branch of the California Writers Club. Please join us next time for another exciting episode from a local author.